The story for Doctor Who, The Power of Kroll, is searching for the fifth segment of the Key to Time. The Tracer brings the TARDIS to treacherous swamps on the third moon of the planet Delta Magna. The Dr. and Romana soon uncover a plot to wipe out the Swampies, the local inhabitants, by the duplicitous crew of a gas refinery. Meanwhile, a massive creature is stirring beneath the waters, and the primitive Swampies believe the only way to calm the powerful monster is human sacrifice. Now, I understand to some people this is like The Power of Kroll is like the least popular of both the Key to Time story arc for the season and also the least popular of Tom Baker's. I kind of I understand some of their dissatisfaction with the story, but I actually like this a lot more than they did for various different reasons. Although I do agree, the one thing I think even the people who are dissatisfied and me agree upon is the acting. The acting is really good, actually. But I actually liked a lot of things that they found dissatisfying. Like, they kind of felt it was slow. I was fine with the pacing. The pacing was actually good. Yes, it was a little slow getting to the creature, but it had a good pace. You know, it kind of built up over and over time. You know, the cliffhanger, everything towards the cliffhangers is good. You know, I think it was just maybe like the first episode because they had to set up everything that people kind of might have felt it was a bit too slow. But the things were they had to introduce everything. They had to introduce the gas refinery. They had to introduce, you know, the company and this, that, and also the swampy civilization, you know, and their beliefs and this, and that, and the gun trader. You know, they had to introduce all these things, and then lead up to this cliffhanger. And I think that's just what made it feel slow to people. To me, it was fine, you know. And then things got even more expanded upon in the second episode, and then it got even greater. You know, the pace picking up with each individual episode, but I think it just wasn't quick enough for them, especially since the monster, you know, was the big thing. There was the one thing I will admit though was that it kind of budgetary wise things looked a little cheap, particularly set wise. Filming location fine, but set wise with the gas refinery just looked a little too cheap was all. That was it. But that's not like a huge flaw. It's just okay, kind of like the set just doesn't seem as, you know, grandiose as what it was on the filming locations. But you know, everything was still fine. This story has a lot of themes to it, from just, you know, themes of with the company greed, you know, environmentalism, because the company just wants, you know, the resource, the protein resource. They don't care how they get it, whether they have to kill people or not. And speaking of killing people, you know, there's the swampy civilization. You know, they have colonialism. You've got gentrification, and I don't know the exact words. I'm sorry, somebody's gonna have to correct me on that. But there's word for you know, when Americans pushed away the Native Americans out of land. There's you know, and I think also the British people did that to people in the country of India when they invaded there. Again, the history professors will have to correct me on that. I apologize if I get that all wrong. But yes, there's stuff like that as well. And also, you know, there's also, I guess I would give the theme of environmentalism, but there's also, you know, cultural themes, and there's also pagan themes, but also being the fan of I am, there's also a lot of Lovecraftian themes in here. You know, old gods, ancient cultures, you know, ancient religion, ancient texts. They got a big ass book you could actually that talks about the Kroll, their god, and it kind of reminded me of the Necronomicon from Lovecraft's Cthulhu mythos. And Kroll itself is very reminiscent of Cthulhu, just little bits here and here changed. So you got a lot of you know themes, just, you know, regular themes, but also you got literary themes with Lovecraft as well. And then also, what was also interesting was, you know, okay, yes, the Swampies, yes, we're just kind of, we play in America play jokes with Star Trek on this, particularly the original series, but the Swampies were just painted green, you know. I didn't have a whole problem with that. I was just fine with it because, you know, the times, and also it was like, I don't know, it seemed to kind of just match what was going on because of where they were, you know. The green skin kind of like matched the environment because they were in a marshland, basically a swamp marshland. There's a lot of green I don't know the correct terminology, but like green grass stalk, you know, they can easily hide and blend into. So I think when you just look at it, you kind of see like, you know, it kind of makes sense that their skin is green because they over evolution or something made them want to blend into the environment or something. I don't know. But yes, I'll admit it does look cheap, but it does make sense. Kroll itself, I was impressed with Kroll. I mean, yes, it was a puppet, but it was an impressive puppet because it had movement. Yes, you know, there'll be strings or something moving the tentacles, but the actual head of Kroll, you could see like things pulsing, moving, and like a tongue or something. It looked more alive than other puppets in previous Doctor Who stories. And I was very much impressed. Yes, it did stick out though, but I was very much impressed how the special effect worked to get Kroll in the same shot as the actors. And it's a very simple, you know, cropping and layering over technique, because you could tell the back image was just Kroll, and then superimposed over that is what they filmed with the actors. And you could see the crop line just above their heads, and at one point one of the actors gets right on the crop line and the top of his head is missing. The very top of his head, so it doesn't really matter that much, but you're like, yeah, there's a little bit of his head missing. But that was very impressive. It blended so well together. The lighting, the you know, and what was it? The lighting, the skyline, everything just fit well together, except for that one little crop line. But everything was fine, and it looked good. I was very much impressed with that. What was it? There was a lot of good tense situations. There was, although I will admit the villain, you know, the villain of the piece, which it wasn't Kroll really, it was more the one of the gas miners. You know, he was the head up guy who wanted to just basically get everything by any means necessary. He kind of felt weak a little bit, not weak like he, you know, he's a wimp, but like his character just seemed a little weak and not as threatening and imposing as he kind of seemed. But but when he kind of, he was just mainly there to show racism, basically. I think that's about it. And just to show the simple-mindedness of political and company greed, pretty much. And I think that's just all it was. So he kind of just felt weak in that respect, that he was only there to really do this and not much else. And what was also interesting is the key, this whole season with the key to time, it was kind of obvious where the key was, but at the same time it was kind of interesting at the same time, because they actually had to go up to Kroll to get it. And the doctor's like, kind of nervous, like, well, I lived a good life, 760 years, it's a good age. And he just walks up with the rod, and he almost gets eaten, but he just zaps him with the rod, and then Kroll turns into the key to time, and it's like stuck on there. It's like, huh. Yeah, it wasn't an epic fight. It had a little tense moment. It was kind of like anticlimactic, but it was just an interesting idea that they actually had to go up to the monster, this big ass thing that could swallow anybody whole, and then just get it from him there. That was a good idea. It just felt a little anticlimactic. And this was also an episode where K9 wasn't involved, because they were in a marshland and they landed in the marshes. K9 couldn't traverse out of the TARDIS. But they did have the actor who voiced K9 play a part in the story, as well as one of the gas miners. So where was I going with this? So you know, it had this story had a lot of good moments. It just wasn't 100% properly executed. It was well written by established Doctor Who writer and story editor Robert Holmes. It just, you know, things weren't executed properly, and I think that was mainly because of budgetary reasons. Because again, ever since the previous year with 1977, Star Wars came out, so they're trying to, you know, and I think everybody across the whole world tried to measure up to Star Wars, because you know that made everybody interested in science fiction, so they had to up the ante. So I think, you know, everybody was trying to live up to Star Wars, and if, you know, they displeased everybody, was like, well, it's Doctor Who or whatever science fiction story they're watching. It's like, it's not Star Wars, it's just trying to be Star Wars, and so they would just stop watching. So I think, you know, they're still trying to struggle with Star Wars and trying to find a proper balance between budget, what they need, and this and that. So yeah, but I did enjoy the story. I had fun, and it's mainly because it's Doctor Who, it's just fun to watch, and B, the Lovecraft fan in me enjoyed it. You know, I'm not gonna split hairs and try and, you know, defend it. Yes, I'm a Lovecraft fan. I'm not a hardcore Lovecraft fan, but I am a fan of H.P. Lovecraft's work, and this reminded me much of it. And also, like I said, there was a lot of just themes in the story that was good to pick apart and examine and look at and just discuss. You know, there's a lot of good things in the story that I think just people miss. And I just, you know, like I said, I enjoyed it. I had fun. There's a lot of good stuff in it. There's not as much humor as there would in previous stories, and that was mainly because I think that Robert Holmes was trying to make it like classic Tom Baker Doctor Who, where it was more of a horror film, you know, a horror story, like a Hammer horror film story. And they were trying to do that. It just, again, didn't quite get executed properly. But I could see what they were going through, and some spots they got it right, some parts they didn't. The humor, when it was there, was good. It was in character. It didn't feel forced, so that was good. It's just, I think there was just too much working against everybody for everything to get properly executed. But, you know, like I said, and I'll defend this story to the end of time if possible. There is nuggets in the story to really look at and enjoy. I mean, and yes, there's some things I do agree with people that were disinterested in this story, but there's some things I will defend in its honor. But, you know, there's some good things in this. Don't be blasé about it. Just watch it, and you're like, yeah, there's some good stuff in here. And it's kind of like one of those things also when people say, oh, classic Doctor Who is rubbish, you know, wobbling sets, this and that. It's like, no, it's not just that. There's more to it. Just watch the show and see. There's more to it, you know, and you see the evolution throughout the years. So, you know, I think it's also that too, particularly with modern audiences. They just don't want to watch, they see something like this, they're like, oh god, it's cheesy, it's crap, you know. And it's like, no, there's more to it. Just watch. I'm kind of rambling at this point, so I'm going to end this story here, this review here, and just say I give this story a good three stars. Yeah, solid 3 stars. I was going to give it 3.5, but you know what? Just a solid 3 stars works because, you know, like I said, there's some things that worked, some things that's different. It had good stuff. It's just not well executed. But I did thoroughly enjoy it. It's great, fun, enjoyable. Watch it and see for yourself. I thank you all for watching, and I hope to see you next time with the Armageddon Factor, I believe it's called. I might be wrong about that. I have to double check. But yeah, I can't wait to see how the end of time, the key to time ends, because each one gets more and more interesting, and we've visited some good stories, like one of the ones previous one I talked about that was just fun to enjoy. It just seemed kind of steampunkish, and then we got a Lovecraftian story with this one. I want to see where we go next. You know, they're doing different genres here and there, rewriting classic stories or borrowing. You know, there's a lot of good stuff with this key to time season. I'd like to see where this goes. All right, so thank you for watching, and have a nice day. Bye.